Hey everyone, what's going on? Okay, I'm gonna dive straight into this topic. This is gonna be like a sequel to my me talking about death while eating dinner video. If you haven't seen that one, don't see that one. Just watch this one. Um, Death is something I think or thought a lot about, your mortality and stuff like that, because I think if you can get over it, then it helps a lot with living in the moment. I mean, not being stressed out, not having anxiety about getting things done, all that kind of stuff. If you get over the fact that you're going to die one day, I think that it helps a lot with just enjoying life as it is. And so in this video, I'm going to go and just talk right about why you shouldn't be afraid of it. So, alright, so why you shouldn't be afraid of death is because you're afraid of non-existence, that possibility of just not being at all, like just not even being present, having consciousness, anything. It scares you because it seems empty and just like you're not there anymore. What I would like to discuss in this video is just how the fact that that existence and non-existence aren't that far apart. I think that either way, whether you live forever, whether you continuously reincarnate, or there's an afterlife, whatever you believe in, whether there's eternal being or finite being, it's pretty much just two sides of the same coin. Alright, so how I will explain this is a little metaphor. Let's say that you were to have a rock in your hand, right? A pebble, anything. You were to just toss it up in the air and it were to hit the ground. Now, beyond that moment, how could you or anybody else really prove or convince anybody else that that rock was ever in the air? It's already on the ground. It was it's already gone up and gone down and staying down. How could you convince somebody that it was in the air at one point? You really couldn't. You really couldn't, unless there was a video maybe you could see. You could say, no, I did it, but everyone could always just not believe you. Now that's the first part, that it's hard to even prove anything ever happens if it's finite, Now let's take this a step further. Now run with me on this. Let's just imagine that this rock pebble had some sort of consciousness. How could the rock, the pebble, prove to itself that it was ever in the air? How could it even know? Okay, we're looking at being in the air as being alive, existence, and being on the ground as non-existence. Okay, so just assume that this pebble, that when it was in the air, is its lifespan. So now, yeah, sure, the pebble, if it was conscious, it was like, okay, I just was in the air. I just fell down. I know that. That happened. Give it 1,000 years. Think that pebble is still 100% sure that it was ever in the air? I don't think so. I think after 100 years, it might be like, I'm not sure. I mean, how much do you remember of when you were a baby? Maybe like the first 3 years of your life, you don't remember at all. Imagine you're that pebble. The only thing you have of being alive is this moment of being in the air, and you have 1,000 years, I guess, of death that you consider, and you'd be like, I was never, I don't even think he would even remember that he was in the air. So, you make this 1 billion, or whatever amount of years it is. Finite life is anything finite is as close, when you put it up against infinity, finite life is just as close to non-existence as you can get. I mean, infinity goes on forever. So if that's what we're thinking of, your finite life, if you only have a finite life and then you die and it's nothing, it's practically like you were never there in the first place. Now let's say that every 100 years that pebble gets thrown back up in the air. Then, you know, you probably forgot that you were ever thrown up in the air again, but you're up in the air again. If it keeps happening in this cycle, like reincarnation, then because of infinity, it's almost like you're always alive. Because if it keeps going, the numbers stack up to the point where it's like, you know, if it's going to keep happening, you keep that non-existence period doesn't really matter because you keep coming back. But like I said, they're like two sides of the same coin. You know, your existence and your non-existence, because what is that time up in the air that you get? It's just, if it's forever and you have infinite possibilities and you keep doing it, then eventually all of the possibilities are going to get boring. I mean, if you have infinite time, if you are doing infinite things, eventually it spreads out to the point where it's kind of nothing anyway, if you can follow what I'm saying. So whether your, you know, time or whether your experience is non-experience or experience, it's kind of just as empty. So what do you make of this? Well, it does boil down to the fact that things are kind of meaningless, but that's not necessarily bad. That just means that, you know, you shouldn't put too much emphasis on meaning and having a purpose or something like that. It's less stressful, in fact, to not do that. Now, does that mean that you should sit around and do nothing? Sure, you can do that. How fun is that with the time that you have? I don't think it's that fun. I think you should do what you like to do. But that's about as far as it is. That's the pressure that you have. Just do what you want to do. Because at the end of the day, whatever we have this experience, and let's just for a second entertain like the monotheistic idea that maybe there's an afterlife, that let's say you were to be thrown up in the air, you fall to the ground, and then you get chucked up in the air. You're the pebble now. And you just stay skyrocketed forever. How amazing is that? How amazing is that to live forever? I mean, like I said, the more it goes on, the more empty, spread out it feels anyway. I mean, so yeah, they're two sides of the same coin. It's not a big deal one way or the other. Either way, you know, I'm gonna be, you know, it's gonna be meaningless, you know? It's gonna be meaningless. And if you, with everybody that's going on, like all the lives that happen, all the things that go on, I mean, it's just one life, one thing, one soul isn't going to be as impactful as you might imagine or you might think that it is. This is also an ego drop kind of lesson. You should drop your ego. You should immediately, if you have an ego, if you think you're some shit, you should drop that shit immediately. Especially if it conflicts with enjoying the moment and having love for what's going on around you. You should drop that immediately because you're not that big of a deal. Whether you live forever or after this you don't exist at all, I mean, you're just, you just are. That's all it is. And so that's why I think you shouldn't fear death, and you really shouldn't fear life either. You should just be.